This is English for Maturità. Welcome to today's episode of English for Maturità. I am Mrs. Gallio, aka the Profa, and I hope to help you revise for your final exam. You'll find all info in the description of this podcast. Enjoy this episode. London by William Blake is an incredibly impactful description of what life was like in industrialized England, and whatever the poet sees and hears around him is negative. Let's remember that William Blake, unlike many poets of his time and after, was not of a rich family. Blake was born in the urban proletariat. His wife was illiterate. He managed to study just because his master, while he was apprenticed, saw that he was very talented and sponsored him. But otherwise, as a child of the lower classes, he would have had very few possibilities. But here in London, which belongs to the collection Songs of Experience, we see a bitter disillusionment of the ideals of the French Revolution that he had passionately believed in, because the French Revolution meant, in the eyes of many, and especially of the urban classes, freedom and a better life. And this did not happen. On the other hand, whatever we see in this poem is something that is really, really terrible. So let's start by seeing what Blake says with London. And so the first stanza says, "I wander through each chartered street." And this is the first line. Chartered actually means both full of traffic and also bought and sold, bought for a commercial purpose, like chartered flights, where a flight is taken just for a group of people. And so it's not free, it's chartered, it's bought, it's sold. Near where the chartered Thames does flow, also the Thames, the river itself is chartered, it's sold, it's full of boats, full of people. And what does he see? What does the poet see? He says, "And mark in every face I meet marks of weakness, marks of woe." So here the word mark is taken with two meanings. One is the verb, I mark. One is the adjective, the noun, marks of weakness, marks of woe. Weakness and woe, apart from the obvious alliteration here, we also have the repetition of the word marks, and something that is marked as sort of negative. It's not something that we like to be. Anyway, these signs of weakness and of sorrow, of pain, are what he sees in the people he meets. And so the first stanza is heavily characterized by the sense, as far as language of sense impressions is concerned, by the sense of sight. The second stanza, on the other hand, is heavily marked by the sense of hearing. And we have an anaphora in every. And this anaphora underlines that what he hears everywhere. And he says, "In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every band, the mind-forged manacles I hear." And so men cry, and this in English can mean both when you weep or when you shout. But anyway, it's not a positive word. And the babies, the infants, cry of fear. They're not happy as babies should be. They are crying because they are afraid. And then voices, and then ban, which is the laws that were read out in the streets. So we have a stanza that is full of noise here. And what he hears is a very famous metaphor, the mind-forged manacles. Everything he hears is marked by prejudice, by something that traps the mind. Manacles are those that were used to bind prisoners. And then again, in the third stanza, we have both the senses of sight and of sound. Because he says, How the chimney sweepers cry, every blackening church appalls, and the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. And here we have chimney sweepers, again little children who were bought by masters and forced to work cleaning the chimneys until they had accidents or died. They were very expendable because they were usually orphans. And Blake has a really soft spot for these children. And their cry, because they are sad and exploited, appalls the blackening church. Here the church, as an institution, is black. It's not just the black of the pollution of the Industrial Revolution. It's also that the church is black because they are not helping the children as they should do, but they are often selling them because orphan children were usually given to parishes to be then adopted or sold to masters, and that's what happened to chimney sweepers. And the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. Again, palace here is with a capital P and means the government. And in those days we have Napoleonic Wars and other wars that Britain was involved in, and soldiers were basically sent abroad to fight. If they came back, very often they had little or nothing, and they were forced to beg or to steal or whatever else. Anyway, they lived in poverty, and so that is why they're hapless. They don't know what to do, and their sigh runs in blood. Again, we have a very powerful metaphor, because the blood of the soldier and their sadness runs down the walls of the government of Parliament. And the final stanza, stanza 4, which says, "But most through midnight streets I hear how the youthful harlot's curse blasts the newborn infant's tear, and blights with plagues the marriage hears." Again, here we have people, we have sound, and we have another institution. Here the institution is marriage, and the people are the harlot and the infant. And the harlot is youthful. Prostitution was rife in this period in London as well as in other cities. And even young children, young girls, were prostitutes. And so they cursed, because of course they didn't like their life. And the baby's ears are full of these cries of hate and more than that, blights with plagues the marriage hears. Marriage, which is an institution that should bring life and joy, now brings death. The hearse is the vehicle with which bodies are taken to the graveyard, to the cemetery. And of course, prostitutes were very often sick and transmitted the sexually transmitted diseases to the men, who in turn passed them on to their wives. So of course marriage is not, again, a place of joy and life, but a place of sadness and death. Please mark the synesthesia in the first line of this stanza, midnight streets. So midnight is time and street is place. So we have these very different words thrown together, and we have this sense of darkness and all the sounds that should not be there, like the curse of the harlot and the crying of the babies, that on the other hand are there. And now let's read the poem all together, and I'll see you after that. London by William Blake. I wander through each charted street, near where the charted Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet marks of weakness, marks of woe. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every ban, the mind-forged manacles I hear. How the chimney sweepers cry every blackening church appalls, and the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. But most through midnight streets I hear how the youthful harlot's curse blasts the newborn infant's tear, and blights with plagues the marriage hears. Thank you for listening to my podcast, and I wish you smooth sailing for your exam. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes, please just write me at the email you'll find in the description. Have a good day. Bye.